As we've mentioned several times already, a big part of this course is learning just how to generally follow what's going on in commodity markets. And you could not understand what's going on in commodity markets if you did not know what important reports were put out by the USDA. So in this section, we will outline all the most important reports that especially corn, soybeans, and wheat markets respond to. And then in later chapters, we'll look at some of those reports in detail and how we might use those reports to influence our forecasting procedures. So the first report we talk about is the Prospective Plantings Report, and it is a survey made by the USDA to a bunch of farmers where they basically say, how many acres are you going to plant to corn? How many acres are you going to plant to soybeans? How many acres are you going to plant to wheat? How many acres are you going to plant to everything you might be planting to? And then they aggregate that survey result and they come out with a number that they release on the last day of March that tells us what farmer intentions are in terms of planted acre numbers. Now keep in mind that these are just farmer intentions, and sometimes things can happen between their intentions as of when the information was collected for that prospective plantings report and when they actually are able to get into the field and plant the crop. So prospective plantings do not always translate into actual planted acres, and there's another report for that we'll talk about in just a minute. But the prospective plantings report definitely it kind of sets the tone for what the supply is going to be like in the coming harvest. The next report is the acreage report, and that is released on the last day of June. And in this report, the USDA has surveyed a bunch of farmers again, and farmers say, this is what I actually planted. And a big topic of conversation in the month of June in commodity markets is, will the actual planted acres number differ from what the planting intentions number was in March? And that can be a pretty big impact on commodity prices on a single day. The next important report is the grain stocks report, and we only get this report 4 times per year, and actually 2 of those days are coinciding with the prospective planting report and the acreage report. So those days, the last day of March and the last day of June, are really, really high information days because we get 2 types of important information coming into the market at once. Now the grain stocks report is where the USDA has went out and surveyed how much grain there is in on-farm storage, how much is at local elevators, how much is in big commercial handlers storage, and it gives us an idea of how much grain we have left carried over from that last year's harvest. And that information provides us a sense of how much those stocks are going to weigh on prices going into the next harvest season. So if we have a lot of stocks, prices are going to be low. If we have really tight stocks and we're almost running out of the commodity, then prices are going to be high and volatile. The next report is called the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates. This report comes out once a month, and it provides estimates of just what it says. So you get information about acreage, expected yield, and that in turn gives an estimate of what production will be in the coming harvest year, in the coming harvest. And then it gives you expectations for how much demand there will be for different kinds of uses. And this report is incredibly influential, especially in the late summer and early fall, as there's uncertainty about what crop yields are going to be. The WASDE provides a little bit of clarity and increasing clarity throughout the fall as those yield expectations become closer and closer to what the reality will be. So the WASDE report has the potential to significantly move markets, and for that reason it's important that the information is secure. If someone who's working in the actual room where these estimates are produced were to leak the information to someone on the outside, then they could make a whole lot of money when the prices moved in response to the report. So because of that, the WASDE report is prepared in very carefully held lockup conditions. And let me just read this quote from the USDA Office of the Chief Economist. To assure the highly market-sensitive information is released simultaneously to all end users and not prematurely to any one, the WASD report is prepared under tight security in a specially designed area of the USDA's South Building. The morning of release, doors in the lockup area are secured, window shades are sealed, and the telephone and internet communications are blocked. Once analysts present their credentials to a guard, they enter the secured area to finalize the WASD report. Communications with the outside world are suspended until the report is released at 12 noon Eastern Time. So this gives a sense of the seriousness with which they take this information. And there's been all kinds of fun stories about people accidentally ending up in the lockup room and not being able to get out until the report release comes out. And they take this special care because there have been cases in the increasingly distant past before they did the lockup preparations where someone did leak information and they were able to benefit from those actions in the futures market. So these USDA reports are the inspiration behind the final scene in the movie Trading Places. It's probably the most well-known scene related to futures markets in popular culture. I really encourage you to click through, watch the clip of the movie, and think about what it means and relate to the WASD report. So the next report listed here is the crop production report. This is actually released in tandem with the WASD report because the WASD report takes that production information and embeds it into the main tables of the report. So it gives you estimates of yield, acres harvested, and total production. The next report listed is the crop progress and condition. This report is issued every Monday during the planting, growing, and harvest season for all major crops. And these reports give kind of a gradual indication of if things are going badly or if they're going very well in the crops. So in 2012, when we had a really significant drought, you could see those condition ratings going down and down very quickly as we entered the month of July. And the markets were responding pretty strongly to that information when the overnight markets after this report was issued. So I provide this table that has a handy summary of all the reports discussed above and different agencies where you can go to find out economic statistics related to agriculture. And so those are going to be handy to refer back to when we work later in the semester. That concludes Chapter 3. Be looking out for a video about the homework assignment that'll be related to Chapter 3. In that case, we'll practice going to Quandl, getting data from it, and then manipulating it inside Excel, and then we'll answer some price analysis related questions once we get our data ready for our use.